Community strengthening and awareness, the recipe for building earthquake resilience. That's the theme for this year's Earthquake Awareness Month, and we have you covered on the things you need to know to improve your ability to bounce back from this natural disaster. Plus,
we will continue to introduce the appropriate technologies and programs to prepare and protect against damage from earthquakes.
Minister of State Colin Fagan will tell us more about those plans as the show progresses. You're tuned into the show that still informs, educates and entertains. I'm Adrian Atkinson, your host for the next half hour. We dive into the magazine with a word of advice, followed by the news.
Good day, I'm Tamara McHale and this is your GIS News for Monday, January 26. Agriculture Minister Derek Kelly says good days are ahead for Jamaican bananas as the country resumes container shipments to the United Kingdom. 4,068 kilograms of bananas was shipped to Ashanti Imports last Friday. It represents the first major export to the UK by container since 2008. Prior to this, bananas were being exported by air freight on a weekly basis. Minister Kelly has commended exporters for seeking out markets for Jamaican bananas and says his ministry will continue supporting the resuscitation of the industry under the EU-funded Jamaica Banana Accompanying Measures program. St. Mary is currently the highest producing parish for bananas. But Minister Kelly says plans are underway to increase production in Western Jamaica, particularly St. James, which was once a traditional area for banana production. Extension officers from the Rural Agricultural Development Authority are to be trained in greenhouse production and land husbandry to strengthen the agriculture sector's resilience against natural disasters. 26 extension officers will be trained in February.
Each parish will have at least 3 officers who can attend to greenhouse culture and practices, and then we want to follow with land husbandry.
The training is being guided by a land husbandry training manual and an extension kit which were handed over to RADA by the Food and Agriculture Organization recently.
We think that by using these tools, the farmers and the country in general will be better able to withstand these natural disasters.
The initiative is part of the FAO's support and capacity building of Extension Officers and Farmers project, designed to reduce disaster impacts on small farmers. Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller is encouraging investors to buy into the country's growth and development agenda. Pointing to recent growth projections by the Planning Institute of Jamaica, the Prime Minister says there are several areas investors can target for good returns in the new fiscal year.
For the 2015-2016 fiscal year, real GDP growth of 1.9% is being projected relative to the previous fiscal year. The expectation is that growth will come mainly from the following areas: mining and quarrying, agriculture, forestry and fishing, and construction.
Mrs. Simpson Miller was speaking at last week's 10th Jamaica Stock Exchange Investments and Capital Markets Conference. She pointed out that the service sector was also projected to grow by 4.5%, while 2% growth was projected for transport, storage and communication services. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller has called for the redevelopment and preservation of a monument erected in honor of 500 unidentified persons who were killed in the 1907 earthquake. The monument, which the Prime Minister describes as a long-forgotten national treasure, is located at Little 8th Street in Greenwich Town, St. Andrew. Mrs. Simpson Miller has asked the Jamaica Social Investment Fund and the Ministry of Tourism and Entertainment to see how they can work to develop the site.
There are a number of Jamaicans that lost their relatives in that earthquake and do not even know where the monument is. We want for it to be known, and so we want to create a little park right there so that people can visit the monument when they wish.
The Prime Minister was speaking at last Wednesday's launch of the first leg of the Integrated Community Development Project. JCIF is implementing the $42 million project with a loan from the World Bank. 80,000 residents from 18 communities across 7 parishes will benefit from various projects, including social intervention, youth livelihood initiatives, and upgrading of public infrastructure. The first leg is being implemented in the Majesty Gardens, Greenwich Town, and Newport West communities. And finally, the Caribbean Examination Council CXC is to adopt the new school-based assessment SBA model developed by the Ministry of Education to prevent breaches in the administering of tests. The SBA is part of the requirement to sit CSEC and CAPE exams managed by the CXC body. Chief Education Officer Dr. Grace McLean says the Council endorsed the new SBA guideline system after it was presented to the external body last December. The new SBA guideline was developed following a survey which found a high percentage of exam breaches, such as projects being submitted without being reviewed by the schools and teachers or parents completing the SBAs for students.
We had some issues last year with SBAs with a few schools, and arising from that, the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with the Overseas Examinations Commission and the National Education Inspectorate, came together to develop a system to quality assure school-based assessment in preparation for the students to sit.
Dr. McLean was a recent guest on GIS TV's Issues and Answers program. She said the new system focused on 6 main areas, including teacher preparation, student preparation, accountability, and monitoring. Auditors have also been contracted to visit schools to check procedures in the administration of SBAs. And that's it for GIS News today. I'm Tamara McHale. Thank you for watching.
Government health centers and hospitals have an adequate supply of paracetamols like Panadol and Cetamol to treat the chikungunya virus. Paracetamol in the public health sector is free of cost. For more on chikungunya and the medication, call the Ministry of Health toll-free at 1-888-1-LOVE. That's 1-888-663-5683. Mondays to Fridays, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. A message from the Ministry of Health.
Time now for our weekly update from the Office of the Prime Minister. Last week, Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller drew the country's attention to a forgotten monument which serves as the burial site of 500 unidentified victims of the January 1907 earthquake. It was a massive quake that devastated the Kingston metropolitan area. Mrs. Simpson Miller's busy schedule also included the launch of the 2015 Jamaica Investment Forum. Here's the recap.
Integrated Community Development Project kicks off in southwest St. Andrew. A call to restore monument and fishing village in Greenwich Town. And 2015 Jamaica Investment Forum launched. I'm Simone Wolf with Jamaica House Weekly. Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller is now in the U.S. capital of Washington, D.C., where she's leading Jamaica's team to the Caribbean Energy Security Summit. Mrs. Simpson Miller and her CARICOM counterparts are meeting with U.S. Vice President Joe Biden. The January 25 and 26 summit is expected to produce a shared commitment to pursuing energy reforms, increased information sharing among countries, and improvements to energy-related assistance within the region. Prime Minister Simpson Miller will also attend the 3rd Summit of Heads of State and Government of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELAC. It will be held in San Jose, Costa Rica on January 28 and 29. Mrs. Simpson Miller is expected to hold talks with other regional leaders on matters of sustainable development, economic growth, and organized crime. She returns to the island on Thursday. Before her departure, the Prime Minister supported the launch of the first leg of the Integrated Community Development Project in Majesty Gardens, Greenwich Town, and Newport West. The 6-year $42 million program is being facilitated by the Jamaica Social Investment Fund, JCIF, through a loan from the World Bank. It will offer social intervention and employment opportunities to 80,000 residents from 18 communities across 7 parishes. The development of public infrastructure will also be targeted. At Wednesday's launch, Mrs. Simpson Miller commended JCIF for its continued work in communities, adding that she was particularly pleased with the education component of the program.
I'm working to transform lives, and education is one way of transforming lives, community at a time and one family at a time. So I believe it is critical.
Mrs. Simpson Miller has also called for greater focus to be placed on 2 projects in the Greenwich Town community. The Prime Minister called on the Jamaica Social Investment Fund and Tourism Ministry to pursue the restoration of a monument to victims of a 1907 earthquake, which she says has been forgotten. The monument, located at Little 8th Street, is a burial site for 500 unidentified victims of the quake.
We need to honor those who perished in that earthquake.
Mrs. Simpson Miller said attention also needed to be paid to the restoration of the Greenwich Town fishing village. Industry, Investment and Commerce Minister Anthony Hilton represented the Prime Minister at last Thursday's launch of the 2nd Jamaica Investment Forum, expressing high hopes for the event.
My expectations are that the next forum, scheduled to take place in less than 8 weeks, will accomplish even greater levels of foreign direct investments to Jamaica.
150 local and international investors are expected to attend the March 10 to 12 forum, which will be held at the Montego Bay Convention Center in St. James. Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller and her Foreign Affairs Minister journeyed to the Millsboro residence of the Cuban ambassador last Thursday. She was there to celebrate Cuba National Day, commemorating the January 1, 1959 Fidel Castro-led revolution. Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade Minister Senator A.J. Nicholson used the occasion to laud the government and people of Cuba on the strides they've made since the revolution.
Cuba has shown the world that, despite decades of continued economic and financial hindrances, much can be accomplished by effectively utilizing one's limited resources. And over the decades, Cuba has applied its resources productively towards economic growth and social development, especially through the development of advanced medicines and excellent medical treatment.
The Prime Minister also took some time to receive guests to Jamaica House this past week. On Monday, she was visited by Major General Anthony Anderson, the Jamaica Defense Forces Chief of Defense Staff, who introduced the Army's new digital combat uniform to the Prime Minister. On Wednesday, Mrs. Simpson Miller welcomed Lennell Hopkins, CEO of US-based company Turnian Group Holdings. And that's where we close this week's edition of Jamaica House Weekly. Join us next time for the latest stories coming out of the office of the Prime Minister.
The Ebola virus is transmitted through direct contact with an infected person's blood or other bodily fluids such as saliva, urine, stool, and semen. The virus can also be spread if broken skin comes in contact with contaminated items like clothing, bed linen, and needles used by an Ebola patient. Symptoms of Ebola include sudden onset of fever, intense weakness, muscle pain, headache, and sore throat. This may be followed by vomiting, diarrhea and rash, impaired kidney and liver functions, and in some cases both internal and external bleeding leading to death. Ebola cannot be spread by someone who does not have symptoms. The time between exposure and when a person begins to have symptoms is known as the incubation period. For Ebola, this is anywhere from 2 to 21 days. Infected patients should be handled by persons wearing proper personal protective equipment, then transferred to designated isolation centers. Protect yourself. Avoid travel to Ebola-affected countries. Avoid contact with infected persons. Don't touch the body of someone who has died from Ebola. Wash hands frequently and use an alcohol-based sanitizer. To know more, call the Health Ministry's Emergency Operations Center at 1-888-1-LOVE. That's 1-888-663-5683.
The Ministry of Local Government and Community Development recently launched Earthquake Awareness Month in conjunction with a number of entities including the Ministry of Education and the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management. Here are some highlights from that event.
So the ODPEM work to build and promote seismic readiness and resilience across the country with support from our international partner agencies. We have taken the necessary step to invest in a number of measures to identify earthquake risk, boost response capacity, and mitigate against the impact from these hazards. So we have developed in conjunction with the United Nations Development Partners in Jamaica a roadmap to seismic safety. And this roadmap serves as a guiding document for improving the resilience of critical facilities, accepting seismic safety as a national priority, and improve seismic safety, scientific and technological process. We have continued effort towards rapid visual screening. So ODPEM recognizes the importance of the role that each Jamaican play in achieving earthquake resilience, and therefore urging them to participate in this month of activity as we work hard to ensure that Jamaica is seismic ready.
Given the unpredictable nature of earthquakes, it is critical that comprehensive planning and increased opportunities for practice are carried out on a sustained basis, all in good effort to build resilience. We will continue to introduce the appropriate technologies and programs to prepare and protect against damage from earthquakes. I can tell you that we are far advanced with the building bill, which is now being reviewed by the Legislative Committee of Cabinet before seeking Cabinet's approval for its tabling in Parliament. The soon-to-be gazetted Disaster Risk Management Act solidifies the government's commitment to ensuring that legislative support is in place for disaster risk management initiatives. The strength of the nation's readiness undoubtedly is dependent on the level of preparedness that takes place at the community level. In this respect, the ministry gives its full support to the Building Disaster Resilience Community model that ODPM has adopted as a means of ensuring local level response. The ministry remains committed to advancing the efforts of building a Jamaica that is resilient to disasters in general and certainly for earthquakes.
As you've just seen, the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development got off to a pretty busy start this year. It was more of the same in 2014, with several programs launched to strengthen local governance and build communities. Take a look.
We are charged to ensure that we do our very best to make effective social protection the common experience in our country.
It's a strategic priority for the government, and in 2014,
the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development has made tremendous strides.
In 2014, government took a big step towards entrenching local government in Jamaica's constitution when the Constitution Amendment Local Government Act was tabled in Parliament. Cabinet also issued drafting instructions for 3 strategic laws which are pivotal to the process of local government reform.
We have received and commented on the draft bills for the Local Government Financing and Financial Management Act, the Local Government Unified Services and Employment Act, and we await the governance bill.
It's the first time really anywhere in Jamaica that we are having a town centre.
As for the inadequate space some other parish councils have to execute their duties,
Today we are here on a joyous occasion.
groundbreaking in late November for a new building to house the St. Thomas Parish Council, and this.
The opening of this facility is a critical signpost of our journey to provide tangible social protection to the vulnerable people of our country.
Several parish councils also got important ICT upgrades, including software to speed up the development application process, and the ministry continued its major redevelopment program for markets across the island.
Any one of you who understand the concept of community development will understand how important it is to the community of Rocky Point to have a proper structure in place to facilitate fish vending.
I am in the market, the new market at Rocky Point.
Minister Arscott also signed a contract with Tankwell Limited to build 170 vending stalls at the Black River Market in St. Elizabeth.
It's the first time in a very long time that we have had any new units. We have 3 in this instance and we have more to come.
Those 3 units, costing $133 million, were deployed to fire stations in St. Andrew, St. Catherine, and Clarendon. The Japanese government also provided an $8 million grant to buy 2 more fire trucks and 2 ambulances for the Westmoreland Parish Council, and gave the Jamaica Fire Brigade another $13 million in grant funding to repair and service fire hydrants. And in August, the brigade received $3 million from Petrojam, primarily to train its firefighters. In 2014, both houses of Parliament passed the important Disaster Risk Management Act.
It transcends the emphasis on preparedness and captures the comprehensive disaster risk reduction aspects of contemporary disaster management practices.
A roadmap to seismic safety was also developed to enhance Jamaica's capacity to prepare for, respond to, and recover from the impact of earthquakes. ODPEM installed CCTV cameras in the Bogwalk Gorge as part of an automated early warning system, and a specialized alerting early warning mechanism was introduced in Portmore for persons with disabilities. In the latter part of 2014, the National Solid Waste Management Authority identified land to build a $35 million waste transfer station near George's Plain in Westmoreland. As for the Riverton City disposal site,
the ability of the landfill to operate efficiently is hampered by the condition of the road.
So last year, the ministry secured $200 million to rehabilitate the access road to the landfill using concrete, and more than $200 million was allocated to support local authorities in cleaning major drains across the island. As the island battled drought conditions for several months last year, the ministry joined government's multi-agency approach to tackle the issue, giving some parish councils extra resources to truck water to affected communities. And in response to an outbreak of the mosquito-borne chikungunya virus, the ministry released funds to parish councils for vector control, local authorities trained persons to carry out public education, and the National Solid Waste Management Authority got $131 million to deal with the backlog in garbage collection. Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller also authorized the provision of funds to give each parish council access to $5 million to carry out cleanup exercises across the country. The Ministry of Local Government and Community Development 2014 year in review.
The ministry has been unwavering in its commitment in ensuring that with very limited resources, we maximize the impact we have on households and communities.
I had a plan for my life. I was going to be a doctor. I was going to be the first in my family to do great things. Then a friend of mine sold me into prostitution. You mash up my life.
Stop human trafficking. It destroys lives. If you or anyone you know has been a victim of human trafficking, call 811 or 1-888-PROTECT. Be wise. Open your eyes. Spot them. Stop them. A message brought to you by the National Task Force Against Trafficking in Persons.
Welcome to the FSC Minute. I am Nadine Newsom. Today, we continue to explore issues related to insurance. And my guest is Rosemary Henry, Senior Director of Insurance with the FSC. Welcome to the FSC Minute, Ms. Henry.
Thank you, Nadine.
Ms. Henry, how do I verify who is a sales representative?
Registered sales representatives are required to have a valid identification card or registration certificate from the FSC. Where these are not available, the sales representative should have a letter under the signature of the registrar of the FSC indicating that they have been approved and the class of business that they can sell. If you are in doubt, contact the FSC.
Ms. Henry, my insurance sales representative is suggesting that I surrender an existing policy in favor of a new one. Should I do this?
You should think carefully before doing this. You should ensure that you are exchanging your policy for one with additional benefit that is better suited to your current circumstances. Also keep in mind that sales representatives who suggest the person to surrender their policy and purchase a new one for the benefit of the sales representative may be guilty of an offense. These persons may also be declared not fit and proper to sell insurance business.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. My guest today was Rosemary Henry, Senior Director of Insurance at the FSC. For the FSC Minute, I am Nadine Newsom.
Bamboo growers, companies involved in the manufacturing of bamboo products. Get registered with the Bureau of Standards Jamaica. The BSJ is a member of the International Network for Bamboo and Rattan, and the government of Jamaica wants to develop a standard-led bamboo industry that could lead to job creation and economic growth. Companies, your products could be stamped with the regionally recognized Jamaica-made mark certification and the National Certification Mark. Get registered and receive quality training and international certification. For more information, call the Bureau's Special Projects Department at 926-3140 or visit the BSJ at 6 Winchester Road, Kingston 10.
Our show has come to an end. We return tomorrow, same time, same station. So feel free to join us for another informative edition of Jamaica Magazine. Can't wait? Connect with us online at jis.gov.jm, via Twitter at JIS News, and of course on our Facebook page. On behalf of the entire JIS team, I am Adrian Atkinson. Thank you for watching.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.